Greetings friends and welcome to another Classic WoW Hunter video. I'm your host Zera, and today we're going to be talking about Phase 6 BiS, the cream of the crop, the top of the heap, the end of the line for all things Classic WoW Hunters. Now, what you're seeing right now is going to be basically your starter set. This is basically what you're going to have regardless if you're Horde or Alliance. This is your go-to pieces in every slot. This doesn't fluctuate depending if you're Horde or Alliance. Now, there are a couple of prerequisites to understand here for Horde and Alliance. There's realistic, and then there's also like probably not realistic, may eventually get it, but it'll take you a long time. King's Fall and Ilbliss, both of those, your main and offhanders, those are going to be really difficult to get your hands on because they are like the best daggers and best swords you can get your hands on. But, you know, at least you have that, you're aware of that. And then, of course, the Shroud of Dominion. It's going to be difficult to get your hands on, but Cloak of the Fallen God, that one will come and go. Whereas in Shroud of Dominion is a clear favorite for the Horde as far as cloaks. Cloak of the Fallen God and Shroud of Dominion basically trade blows, and they're basically the exact same. There's a difference of a grand total of 0.1 DPS for Alliance. So, honestly, if you're Alliance, you're probably better off just getting Cloak of the Fallen God, which comes from the Eye of Cthulhu out of AQ40. Which is a mandatory, always drops. You'll eventually get that. Matter of fact, we just finished our casters getting all of theirs, so really excited about that opening up for the hunters. But the hands is literally just dependent on whether or not you got rank 12 or not. But get a good look. I'm going to have links all down below for these 60 upgrades links, and also have a link down below for the DPS spreadsheet. You can plug these in. You can try different combinations. I promise you this is the best you're going to get. So let's just look at the Alliance first. It's what's near and dear to my heart. Obviously, top to bottom, you have, this is the non-rank 12 set. So you're wearing a full 9 of 9 for Crypt Stalker, including the ring. And then, of course, you also have Slayer's Crest. Your Charm of the Beast is still going to be part of your opener. And then you're going to be able to swap from Charm back to your Black Hand's Breath or Mark of the Champion, really depending on what you're rocking with. If you've killed Kel'Thuzad and you had the quest to kill Kel'Thuzad and you have Mark of the Champion and you're in Nax, that extra 150 attack power is substantially more powerful than your, typical 2% crit. So just keep that in mind. I thought maybe in Phase 6, whenever the attack power would get enhanced by 400 due to the buffs to the world buffs that we have access to as hunters, now affecting our range attack power, I thought maybe the attack power from Mark of the Champion wouldn't impact us as much. I thought maybe sticking with the 2% crit would be more valuable. But as it turns out, 150 attack power, no matter how much attack power we have versus crit, it's really, 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 really hard for that 2 attack power or 2% crit to take over 150 attack power. So keep that in mind. But again, that's more specifically just for Nax. And honestly, there is actually one encounter where there's a humanoid battle, so that one you're just going to have to keep in mind which fight you're in and where it's going to be useful. But otherwise, these are your go-to starting ones. King's Fall and Ilbliss are going to be the best you can get. There is a teeny tiny like 0.3% or 0.3 DPS increase if you're able to get your hands on Harbinger of Doom as Alliance, but just keep in mind that Harbinger of Doom and Ilbliss are both going to be very high contested from your rogues. It's going to be very hard to get your hands on this, so just be aware of that. But it is worth noting that this does squeak out a little bit more DPS when you have King's Fall in main hand and Harbinger of Doom in your offhand, mainly just whenever you have access to Kings and Spirit of Zandalar as Alliance. Those two combined together to give you multiplicative more agility. It does give you a little bit more damage, but honestly, you probably don't want to do that to your melee. You don't want to be like, hey, this is my BiS only when I've got world buffs, and hey, this is my BiS when I don't have world buffs. This is the end of the end. Like, don't do this to your melee. I would more or less just sell your soul out for King's Fall and Ilbliss and just move on from there as Alliance. And as Horde, it's more of the same, really. Like I said, the only real difference here is going to be your cloak, more or less. The cloak for Horde is a clear winner, is Shroud of Dominion by far and away. The raw crit and 50 attack power you get because Horde do not gain the benefit of Kings to benefit towards the extra agility from Fallen God. But it is also worthy of noting that Shroud of Dominion is not a DPS drop-off for Alliance. It's basically neck and neck. So if nobody's rolling on this, if it's not going to affect you, or if you end up doing Phase 6 forever in a day and you're like one of those few people that's like right there teetering on getting the absolute best you can get, and you've gotten everything except Shroud, even though you know deep in your heart that, you know, it's not really a DPS upgrade to Fallen God. It's more or less just the exact same. It's an even Steven trade. If that's the last piece you can get, go for it. Otherwise, I would, if you're Alliance, I would leave Shrouded Dominion until the absolute last and mainly focus your attention on, as hunters, clearly, the #1 clear objective is to get Nerubian as fast as possible. Beyond that, getting your hands on Band of Reanimation is going to be key, and then the rest of it's just knocking tier 3 off the list. Your offhand, your main hand and offhand are nice, but at the end of the day, if you had to get one of these first, the clear winner here is going to be Kingsfall. Now, keep in mind, too, that these both have hit on them, so if you end up swapping to Nerubian, and unless you're rocking your Signet Rings, or perhaps you're rocking a Don Julio's, you're still going to be struggling to find hit elsewhere. So keep in mind, you may need to slap 3% hit on Nerubian in order to maintain your hit cap if you don't have these yet in Nax and you're still wearing full tier 3. But that one's entirely up to you. As for the enchants, I know a lot of people are probably going to come down on me like a ton of bricks and say, Zera, WTF, why are you rocking MP5 with your bracers when you should have 1+1 agility? You know what? I'm gonna leave that discretion up to you. I don't really think you're losing out on DPS here because you already get a substantial amount of MP5. I believe the amount of MP5 that we're getting here is 30, right? So we're getting 30 MP5 on top of the reduced mana cost of our aim shots and multi-shot, not to mention Adrenaline Rush, granting us 50 mana per crit. So keep in mind that MP5 is going to already be substantially high, but I just like the idea of slapping +4 mana per 5 onto your bracers just to add a little bit more to what tier 3 gives you. That's just me. I've never actually played Nax. I've never had full tier 3 before, so I don't know what the feeling's going to be like. All I know is that when we roll into Nax, having things like Brilliant Mana Oil is going to be really difficult, or Brilliant Wizard Oil on your weapons is going to be really difficult because you're going to want to slap on your Undead Elemental Sharpening Stones because that's going to give you an extra 200 range attack power. So just keep these kind of things in mind. Getting that extra 4 mana per 5 can be the difference between make or break, or it could not make any difference at all. Who knows? It's just something that I don't have a lot of experience with. It's just worthy of noting here. But if in your experience you find that +1 agi is better for you, go for it. It just really depends on the individual, I believe. But here's the thing to keep in mind, is that this is it. This is the end-all be-all. There's not really a whole lot of variation here. And again, the only difference between these two is simply just slapping on your rank 12 gloves. And that goes for both Alliance and for Horde. There's virtually no difference whatsoever between these sets. Now, the beautiful thing about this is that being able to utilize Nerubian with +7 damage, once you get to this point to where you have your main hand and offhand weapons, and not having to rely on hit from your rings, it's absolutely incredible. And you're talking about just raw agility from your rings, which is just going to be stellar awesome. Slayer's Crest giving you a substantial increase to your attack power baseline, not to mention the most attack power you can get from an unused trinket in Classic is just stellar. Absolutely amazing. So just keep in mind also that you're competing with other classes for this gear, and there's also going to be items that you're going to need to turn these quests in as tokens. I can't remember the exact match. I'll put them up on the screen for you, but it's worth noting that for Alliance, you've got to compete with your Paladins and your Druids, and for Horde, you have to compete with your Shamans and your Druids. Now, I'm not 100% sure what majority of the raid comps are for Horde, but I know for Alliance, Druids are a dime a dozen. They're here, they're there, they're everywhere. There's usually 1 or 2 every raid just for healing. Our raid, unfortunately, my raid, unfortunately, has like 4 or 5 druids because 2 of them are tanks and 1 of them, or 2 of them are healers. And we usually have 1 rotating in every so often. And then paladins, we have 4 paladins. And of course, they're all holy paladins. So I'm going to have a hard time, or at least we as a hunter class in our guild is going to have a hard time getting access to Knight of 9 tier 3. I know my boy Maniac has stepped up and said that he's going to fight through to the end to get his hands on tier 3, like Knight of 9 and everything. And I was like, you know what, man, that's awesome. I'm proud of you. But honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't know if I can commit to that. I mean, that is a long commitment. I mean, we've already been doing AQ40 now for 12 weeks. We finally got Jom Gabar to drop. Your boy won it. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. But the thing is that 12 weeks, man, that's, my patience is wearing very thin. Like, I'm starting to get to the end of my rope with Classic. I'm holding on to a thread. I might take a week off around Thanksgiving to kind of just recharge my batteries. But to be completely honest with you, I'm just tired of seeing the same raid over and over and over and over. And unfortunately, unlike retail, where you may never have to go back and redo old content to keep getting gear, because Mythic Plus and everything, they'll continuously increase item level over time. Classic doesn't do that. So we've got a feral tank that came back after 2 or 3 months of not playing. Well, now we got to go back and keep doing rag over and over and over to get Band of Accurate. And I'm like, oh my God, I've seen rag 500 times. Can we not do this again? But you know, it is what it is. But with that being said, guys, this is it. I mean, this is the cream of the crop. Like I said, there's nothing different between these two besides the gloves. So get a good look, take a screenshot here, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Again, the only difference between Horde and Alliance, really, at the end of the day, is going to be your cloak. You can argue that Harbinger of Doom is something you need to go after, because for Alliance, when you have Kings and Spirit of Zandalar, it's going to be a little bit better, but by a little bit, I mean like 0.3 DPS. Same for the Cloak for Alliance, Cloak of the Fallen God, which you're eventually going to get your hands on, versus Shrouded Dominion, which you're going to have to compete really, really hard for. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. These are basically neck and neck with each other. And there is a worthwhile note here. Claw of the Frostworm is an excellent offhand weapon to utilize as a hunter. If you can't get your hands on King's Fall because there's just so much competition for it, because it is literally the best dagger in the game, then you can always just fall back to utilizing Claw of the Frostworm in your offhand, and then go to Iblis in your main hand. Either one of those are going to be very fine and upstanding and excellent choices, but that is going to more or less going to be your realistic route to BiS, because expecting to get your hands on King's Fall or Iblis is going to be extremely hard to do, especially as a hunter. But who knows? You may get lucky and have 20 of these drop off of Kel'Thuzad inside the first 4 months. I doubt that's ever going to happen, but I've heard of crazier things. It took us 12 weeks to get one Jam Gabar, and I've heard of people getting Jam Gabar like 7 weeks in a row. So without any further ado, guys, that about sums it up. I know it was rather quick, but there really wasn't a whole lot to this. I mean, it's quite simply that easy. You're not doing a whole lot. You're not mixing in different tier sets like rank 12 with rank 10 and then some tier 2. You're not mixing in tier 2.5 with tier 2 and rank 10 and rank 12. You're not doing that. You're just going sold out, going for rank 12 if you're close. If not, if you already have it, great. If you never went for it, don't try it now. It's too late in the game really to worry about it. Besides, the DPS increase is about 4 if you have the rank 12 gloves compared to what not having them is. So 4 DPS is well within the margin of error of latency, lag, whatever, human error, whatever it might be. So 4 DPS, well within the margin of error. So I think anybody who's wearing rank 12 versus anybody that's wearing full tier 3, probably on a week-to-week basis over the course of several months, is literally not going to see a difference in their DPS. It's just not going to happen. Not a substantial or a significant difference, and certainly not going to be able to look at it immediately and be like, oh my God, I can immediately tell who's wearing rank 12 gloves. Probably not that visible, but you know, crazier things have happened. But I want to just tip my cap to Blizzard and thank them for giving us the 400 attack power buff from finally applying world buffs to our range attack power. That's going to be incredible. So Juju's Might, and don't forget your Oni buff, and also your buffs out of DMT, and you will be just fine. And also don't forget those undead sharpening stones. Absolutely incredible. Without any further ado, I love you guys as always. Woo pig, and I'll see you in the next video. Zera out.